Jessica, it's such a pleasure to have you. You have been in the
Thank you.
influencer marketing industry for nearly 17 years, been an influencer yourself for more than a decade, and I would say you're still an influencer. But you have seen a lot of evolution in the social media space, and I have so many questions for you. So, why don't we start with what really got you into being an influencer back in 2006, to starting Modern Day Moms and now operating as head of marketing at Sound Advice?
Yeah, it's actually an interesting story. I didn't really know anything about influencers because back in the day, around 2006, 7, there really wasn't a space for us, right? We were considered just bloggers, I guess you could say. Started on like Blogspot or something. And I just, on a whim, decided to create a blog about cupcakes. And wasn't expecting anything. I loved cupcakes. I just kind of curated content, featured everything cupcake related. And it led to me being invited onto the Martha Stewart show. It was called the Blogger Edition in 2009. Perez Hilton was there and Politico. And that kind of kick-started my journey into where I am today. But right after that, I sold it, it got acquired, and I moved on, to graphic design, web design. And then in 2010 was really when I started a parenting publication. My tagline was not another mom blog because there were so many at this point. And essentially, it was almost like I felt like I had no real rules to go by except I was an influential person. I had a large following. We had 11 million monthly readers and a large follower base on social media. And, this was around the time that Vine disappeared, Google Plus tried to make it a thing, and then Instagram came out, and we really just kind of learned as we went. There were no rules, there were no algorithms, there were no influencer talent agencies. We just, and I say we, there was a handful of us that really just kind of flew by the seat of our pants and did everything we could, and we would just work directly with the brands, like Google and Honda and Dyson and all of that. And they would literally just come to me and say, hey, here's an idea we have. We want to reach your audience. What can you do for us? And it was just straightforward. Fast forward to 2018, I amassed this huge following, and I was getting a little bit tired of being on the public side of being an influencer. So my business got acquired. I sold all of my social media accounts and personal accounts. And,
Wow.
yeah, I just kind of went dark on that in that sense. And I started working on the opposite end. And my goal was to honestly connect brands with influencers. It was a big thing. A lot of people didn't know what to do. And so I would then come on board with a lot of different companies and agencies and tell them how influencer marketing works and go from there. And so that leads me to where I'm at today, still doing the same thing that I've been doing since I decided to stop being an influencer and work with them directly, I guess you could say. I never stopped. I thought I would
Yeah.
retire. I had all these plans, and that never happens. That
Yeah,
never
I
happens quite like you want.
think if you're passionate about something, you just don't stop. You can think about retiring and having the corpus, but that doesn't make you stop doing what you really love. Amazing.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So you got into the other side around 2018, right? So
Yeah.
how has your role as an influencer marketer, as a manager, evolved in the last 6 years or so? Has there been significant changes when you joined, and now what's happening in the world?
I think the biggest thing now, or a lot of influencers are embracing the affiliate marketing aspect, especially the larger influencers, because it's more of a long, steady stream of income versus like a flat rate for a piece of content that ends up just sitting on the internet somewhere. Whereas if you have affiliate link or a commission deal or equity deal or whatever it might be, you can always, rely on that, even if, your social media following goes down or you aren't as popular as you once were. So I'm really passionate about that aspect of influencer marketing. But the second
Mhm.
one is just, I think the biggest thing is just finding influencers that relate to the company. And now there's so many tools out there, the
Yeah.
influencer discovery tools out there that allows you to do that. That didn't exist back in the day. So I think the biggest thing is just realizing, okay, now I can actually vet influencers that I want to work with, and also have to deal with the talent agents, which is a new
Hmm.
thing that wasn't around,
Yeah.
back then. And that's a whole different world. That's a whole separate ball game, is negotiating with agents, because
Mm.
they also want a piece of the pie as well. So it's a learning curve in that sense, but a lot of what I'm seeing lately is more word of mouth marketing, brand ambassadors, street teams. That's really, really popular among a lot of people. And I think, especially since the pandemic, there's a big aspect of community that goes into being like an influencer or being successful with influencers, is allowing them to feel like they belong, right?
Yeah.
Whereas before it just felt like we would create content and that was it. Now it's a whole thing of just literally having a community of people with you, and supporting what business you're working with, or
Mhm.
that sort of thing. So I
Yeah.
found that really
Now
interesting.
that's a very interesting point, like how technology has evolved and how all these platforms are automating something that you would do manually and spend most of your time searching for the right people. And now that's all automated. So of course you have to deal with the automations gaps as well. Like really make sure you're getting the right influencers, but then also it saves your time so you can go out and explore even more things. Amazing. Is there any
Yeah.
influencer marketing campaign that stands out in the last 6 years that you have done? I'm sure there are many, but if you think about, wow, that was crazy, could be a successful one, could be something that was a big lesson learned. Anything that stands out?
Um, to me in general, I look at influencer marketing being more successful when it's organic and less spammy. And there are a couple brands just in general that I really love, and how they
Hmm.
handle their marketing, or whether it's like bad reviews. Like there's that Liquid Death sparkling water, and they make CDs based off hateful comments that they get on social media. Like, I would rather drink toilet water than your water, and they turn it into a song. And I think that's really funny. Or there's a company called Oatly, and it's oat milk. And
Hmm.
it said, one of their big, advertising campaigns is, we technically can't call this milk based on what our legal team says, but you can, that kind of thing. It's almost like disruptive, think outside the
Yeah.
box. um, I did a campaign with Pabst Blue Ribbon, which is a beer here, and I actually used their cans and I turned them into candles, so they were beer candles. And that was really successful because it was looking at it from a different perspective, right?
Yeah.
Instead of recycling or whatever it might be, it was actually turning something into a useful thing that many can do. And now when you go
Hmm.
to a lot of like art markets outdoors, you'll see people are now making these candles from
Yeah.
beer cans, and I just think it's amazing. But there's a lot of different things that approaches you can take with influencers nowadays. You just have to be creative, and that's really the main point of all of it, is being creative, letting them have creative control with their audience, because the more you try to navigate and tell them exactly what to do, the less likely you're going to have people resonating with them, converting over, whether, it depends on what it is. And I just think creative freedom is one of the number one goals for any successful influencer campaign in general.
Right. No, absolutely agreed. I think even with all the technology coming in and machine-based text coming in and all the videos coming in based on AI, I don't think the human element and the human innovation, in thinking about new ideas and the disruption and just going off the track, because machines are based on experiences that have already been created. So, and it's up to humans to
Exactly.
come up with new ideas and new strategies that will then stand out from the crowd. Yeah. Is when you're doing influencer marketing campaigns, what are the top three KPIs that you usually track in the present time? Let's talk about like today's time.
Sure. I think the biggest one is reach. Once you find the right influencer, the reach kind of comes with that, because you're essentially working with the influencer not only to help promote your company, but their content, needs to be somewhat relatable in the sense where they can drive a call to action, right? Like
Right.
click on the
Yeah.
link in bio or something like that. So I think it's really important, once you find those influencers to set those goals, having them just talk to their followers, and that with that comes new followers to your company, new impressions, engagement, and that's another one. Engagement is a big one. I like to sometimes just reshare or remix content from other influencers to kind of promote them too, but another part of that is they're going to be seeing that I'm promoting them, and so then they're going to check us out. So I think a big part is just engaging with the community, focusing on the reach with the right influencers, and then comes the call to action or the click through rates or
Mhm.
the conversions or whatever. But I think the first two is more so connecting with the audience, engaging with them, being personable with them instead of spammy, and then the rest kind of follows behind that.
Right,
So
right.
I really agree with that.
No, absolutely agreed. I think that's like the fundamental base, like having your reach as best as possible
Mm-hmm.
with the right set of influencers and also relevant reach. Like you can't
Yep.
promote a beauty product with a female influencer who has 80% male following. That just doesn't make sense. Right. So
Exactly.
yeah, yeah,
Or if your product is only in the US and you're working with an influencer who has 80% following in the UK, I mean, that's not
yeah,
going to help you. That's not going
exactly.
to help you.
Yeah,
It might give brand awareness, but none of the people who follow you will be able to use your product.
yeah,
So I really think it comes down to first and foremost finding the right people to be part of what I like to consider your community. Influencers, brand ambassadors, those who are willing to spread the message about what you are and who you are while also being, semi-relevant to your brand, I think is one of the most important. And then
mhm,
the rest kind of falls into place, really, the engagement, the conversions and all of that. So you're right.
right, right, right. And how do you go about structuring your influencer marketing campaigns at Sound Advice? Do you guys go for like a lot of influencers or targeted influencers? How do you go about planning campaigns right now?
I think one of the most important things, we actually work with a lot of different people, whether they're a high, profile mega influencer, a celebrity, to a college student, brand ambassador with 100 or 1,000 followers. It really doesn't matter.
Mhm.
If they have influence in their community and they're not on social media, great. You can still make that work for you through QR codes and everything else that goes on, right? So you just have to look at it from many different aspects instead of focusing on a specific like niche of micro influencers or mega
Mm.
influencers. My thought is honestly just tapping into all of them and working with all of them in various ways, and then you kind of kind of put your hand in the basket of everything, so to speak. You know what I mean? So
Right. Yeah.
it really is helpful in that sense.
Yeah. No, definitely agreed. I think there's no one answer that fits all the brands. It might like micro influencers might work for a perfume brand, but it may not really work. Like the same strategy might not work for another brand. So it's always like, okay, try all the different channels if you have the capacity, of course, and the budgets, and
Mm-hmm.
then something or the other will pop up, and then you just double down on those efforts and just back off from something that's not working. So experimentation absolutely necessary, and especially in today's time when things are
Yep.
evolving. There are new products coming in the market, different categories are getting different trends, and you just can't keep up with everything. So just try a bit of everything, maybe.
I agree.
So while you're running influencer marketing campaigns in today's time, what are the three pain points that really stand out for you?
I think the biggest one is just finding the right influencers who, don't inflate their numbers or their rates and things like that, and really kind of vetting them because
Hmm.
you'll find you're going to be spending so much money and not getting the results that you've been promised. So the biggest thing for me is really just trying to find the right type of not content, but influencers and brand ambassadors and things like that to really, drive the brand messaging and the
Hmm.
influencer marketing. Because I think that if you're just so hyper focused on how many followers they have and don't actually look at their engagement, which is 0.003%, right? How is that going to help you?
Yeah.
So my thing is really you just have to find an influencer you can relate with that has, a good engagement rate, a good following that's in your target demo. And with that comes, a lot of success. But that's one of the biggest pain points is just, you know, although the influencer will give you their media kit and their rates and tell you what they think they're worth, it's really important to do the due diligence and see exactly, what's behind the curtain, so to speak, and find out exactly their engagement rate, their audience, and that's a big pain point. I think the second one is just the, communicating with talent agents. They're amazing. They have a lot of talent they represent. Their rosters are always so wonderful. The biggest thing is it's almost like putting a second step in between you and the influencer
Right. Yeah.
versus back in the day where you could talk to the influencer directly. So I think that can be a little challenging when you're wanting to move the needle quickly and have to go through five other people to get that done. So I would say that's probably the second one. And the third one is just I found that catering campaigns to specific influencers is more successful than putting a campaign out there and having everybody, you know, chip in it. Because I'm going to
Mhm.
tell you, a mega influencer with 3 million followers versus a college ambassador with 1,000 followers on social media, but has hundreds of friends that they talk to on a daily
Mhm.
basis. Both of them are going to do an amazing job, but I can tell you one of them might convert a little better. Depends on how popular they are at their college, but they might have a better result, right? So it really is interesting having to look at it from that perspective and kind of, be blinded by just how many followers they have versus back in the day when that was the only KPI people went by. Oh, how
Mhm.
many followers does this influencer have? Okay, they're great. Nowadays they could have 3 million followers and do nothing for you. So, except take your money.
Of course, a lot of money. Like, yeah, like the mega influencer is going to take a great deal more than your micro influencers. And yeah, you're absolutely on the point. Like the conversions sometimes could be much better from a smaller influencer who has a very genuine audience who is like following that person as compared to a
Exactly.
mega influencer. And it also depends what the brand really wants to do. Is it something that they just want to get their name out? Okay, then get those mega influencers, get your name out. But is it going to bring a lot of revenue? Maybe, maybe not. Yeah, absolutely spot on that.
Yep. Yep.
And looking ahead, so a lot of tech is evolving, this machine-based text and machine-based videos coming out. What do you see as like the challenges and the optimistic future about influencer marketing for the coming years? What's your view on that?
Well, actually, CBS News, Forbes, People.com, they all just came out with a study that 86% of young Americans, young adults, want to become social media influencers. 86%.
That's a
86%.
great
To
deal.
right, between the ages of 18 and 24. And
No wonder.
go on Google, if you go on Google and
Yeah.
type in 86% social media, it will, come up and show you. But to to the point, that's where a lot of people are. And that's kind of what sound advice is about too, is like for the 99%, for those who may not have had like wealth building advice or know what to do to have a side hustle, and a lot of the future generation, that's what they want to do. They don't want to work 9 to 5 in a cubicle, although some do, and that's fine. But they're seeing their parents going back to work at 75 and or 70s, and they just don't like that, and so I think the future is really all about designing a life that they love. And with that comes 86% of them want to be a social media influencer. And, I really think that they're onto something there. I mean, they see
Mm.
how it's been done before and they're willing to go above and beyond to make it even better. And that is what's happening. I mean, they're reviving so many platforms. The other
Right.
day, LinkedIn is starting to become more popular with the younger generation, and who would have thought, right? And so it's just one of those things that kind of changes with the territory, as the younger generation comes up. But it's really nice to see that they do want to have their hand in social media in some way,
Yeah.
and I like that aspect. So I don't think influencers are going to be going anywhere anytime soon.
No, absolutely not. No, it's definitely just going up from here. And even in the B2B space, influencer marketing is getting very popular, where typically it's more of a long-term relationship building. There are different marketing strategies, and now influencer marketing is seen as a valuable tool in pretty much every industry, no matter what you are selling. This is here to stay. Yeah.
I mean, really with sound advice, I mean, we cater to like students and the younger generation and those who want to maybe start their own business,
Hmm.
in marketing or, gig workers, side hustlers, any and everybody, to be honest with you. But I think there needs to be more encouragement and education regarding how to do these things. It's not taught in school. There isn't a class on how to be an influencer, although that doesn't surprise me if that will pop up pretty soon in most colleges. But I think money is different for the younger generation because they don't have as much
Yeah.
as their elders have. And they see people like older financial influencers saying invest $10,000 and into this, and they're thinking like, I have a dollar
I don't have
50
that.
in
Yeah.
my bank account, so how am I supposed to do this? And that's kind of just where sound advice is there to like motivate them, like, hey, don't worry about that, small steps, let's take small steps here. But just in general, like I think back to when I was an influencer, so to speak, before it was a thing. I didn't have any guidance. I didn't know what to
Yeah.
do. I
I can
didn't,
imagine.
and so I really am passionate about, what I'm doing now. And I'm almost feeling like I'm helping others prevent some of the mistakes that I made.
Yeah. 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 I think different
So,
times, and we'll see like 15 years, 20 years down the line, times would have completely changed. And we would
mhm.
think, wow, back then all these things did not exist, which is a whole different ball game, I think, in the future.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. It was so lovely to have you. I think it was very fun talking to you about your experiences, what you're doing at Sound Advice, and how your role has shaped as an influencer marketer and an influencer yourself over time.
Thank you.
I'm sure the audience would take away some great learnings. And thank you very much for joining us.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me, and I really appreciate it. And I look forward to talking to you more in the future.